Hello there. I'm Paul Glumaz. Welcome once again to General Welfare Presents. Today is the Ides of March, March 15th, one of the few Roman days that remain in our memory thanks to Shakespeare and the play Julius Caesar. And our Julius Caesar, Donald Trump, has now been surrounded in the government by many Brutuses who are preparing to stab him. These Brutuses are neocons. They are not. They don't think like Trump, and they don't act like Trump, and they don't believe in Trump, and they don't believe like Trump. And their top man, who's still alive, who represents their clan or class of neocons, is none other than Dick Cheney himself. And if you look up Wikipedia, you will see that the Vice President, Michael Pence, considers himself the incarnation of Dick Cheney with respect to Donald Trump. And nothing could be more truthful, because they're doing everything possible to destroy everything that Donald Trump is doing. However, Donald Trump thinks he's very brilliant, and he's using them for his purposes. And because of his popularity in the U.S. population, they can't get rid of him. And they're trying to also use Donald Trump for their purposes. So we have a situation where something's going to give in the near future, because Donald Trump's about to make a major agreement with China, which these guys are trying to wreck. And the whole North Korea situation they're trying to wreck. And they're trying to use Venezuela, which is a setup to destroy Trump's relationship with Russia and China. I say this at this time because for both Bolton, Pence, and Pompeo, they are publicly saying that the main issue is China's Belt and Road, that the enemy of the United States, the number one enemy of the United States, is the Belt and Road, what China is doing. It used to be Vladimir Putin, but now it's shifted to the Belt and Road, this massive infrastructure project that's taking off around the world. And I bring up the Belt and Road issue because it's crucial. The Belt and Road is the quintessential anti-colonial, anti-IMF, anti-New World Order program. Because what does it do? It builds infrastructure. And what happens to the countries where you build infrastructure? They have more economic activity. And what happens when they have more economic activity? They produce more. And what happens when they produce more? There's less poverty. There's more economic power. There's greater stability. And that is being attacked as the Chinese imperial ambitions. Well, if you know the Chinese pretty well, they generally have a live and let live attitude. I've never met a Chinese imperialist. I've never met a Chinese imperialist who goes around saying, we rule the world, we're the Anglo-Saxon race, and we deserve to rule because our genetic code is superior. I never heard any Chinese saying that. However, they do say, we are Chinese, and you are barbarians, and we welcome you. But, we're not here to tell you how to live. You can live however you want. It's your business. We'll work with you. We'll trade with you. We'll even help you grow and develop, because it's in our interest to do that. Because we're Chinese, and we're in business, and we like business, and we like economic activity. And, we're not threatened by other cultures. We're not threatened by. We have a, 5,000, 8,000 year cultural tradition. We're secure. We will be Chinese today. We'll be Chinese tomorrow. We'll be Chinese 1,000 years from now. That's their attitude, and that's good. It's not an empire. It's a civilization, but not an empire. They're not out. During the Tang Dynasty, in the 800s AD, they had foreigners in their cabinet positions. They didn't discriminate. They brought in foreigners from all over the world, to philosophers and what have you. this whole thing of the Chinese, the yellow menace. That's what's Cold War propaganda during the Korean War, and then later during the Vietnam War. The Yellow Peril is called. The Yellow Peril. The chinks are coming for you. You know, Hollywood. You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this is a problem we have to deal with. Now, something happened 2 days ago that has had a stupendous, has caused a stupendous ripple effect throughout the world, and that is the government of Italy is planning to sign a Memorandum of Understanding joining the Belt and Road. There are 40 major industrialists currently from China in Italy, first in Sicily, and then they're going to be in the rest. Xi Jinping, the president of China, is going to be coming to Italy on a week from today, next Friday, March 22nd. Now, what really sent shockwaves around the world is that the movement of Lyndon LaRouche in Italy, Moviso, had a conference 2 days ago in the regional government building, and it was opened by the Italian development minister, economic development undersecretary, Michele Geraci, who is the leading organizer of the expansion of development with Italy and the Belt and Road. And so he spoke at our conference. This is the undersecretary of the economic development ministry speaking at a LaRouche conference on the Belt and Road. The day before, the leading former economics minister, Giulio Tremonti, in an interview on China and the Belt and Road and Italy, said that the Belt and Road, it comes out of a project that began with the American visionary Lyndon LaRouche. So Lyndon LaRouche is being identified by the Italian government and by the leading former economics minister as the originator of the Belt and Road back in the middle 1990s. And you have to understand what that means. The identification of LaRouche with the Belt and Road is telling the world that the most profound development program in the world, which began in 2013, is a product of the ideas of Lyndon LaRouche. This is huge. Now, for 4 years after this announced, the Belt and Road was announced, there was no coverage in the European press and in the U.S. press, hardly none. Nobody knew about it. We were talking about it all over the place, all over Europe and the United States. People had no idea. We had maps on the streets of the United States showing the various routes, the various infrastructure routes, the various corridors of economic development. We were promoting this all over the world, and not a word in the U.S. press, not a word in the European press. Then, after 4 years, and then beginning at the end of 2017, you began to hear about it. China's new empire, the debt trap. They're putting all these countries into debt to build this stuff. Oh, these projects will never work. They're boondoggles. That was the first thing that was said, was these projects will never work. They'll never see fruition. They're just a boondoggle. They're going to destroy the Chinese economy. The Chinese economy is going to be destroyed by building all these projects. They're going to create all this debt, and then the debt will not be payable. It's unsound economics. That was the first wave of it, and then came the second wave of that. Was once they started to see that it was successful, then it was the debt trap, the new colonialism, the new empire, the new takeover of the world by the Chinese, the new yellow peril. And that's where Pompeo, that's where Michael Pence, that's where Bolton are coming from. And they're saying so. And that's where a lot of the military is saying this. They're saying it. oh my God, the Chinese are taking over the world with the Belt and Road, and we have to stop them. We can't have them bring the Belt and Road to the Americas. We have to overthrow Venezuela. Well, Venezuela is not really part of that, but it doesn't matter. They're using that as a reason for why they want to overthrow the Venezuelan government. So, but is Donald Trump actually saying any of that himself? No, he has never said anything of that type. So you have all his cabinet, major cabinet officials and vice president, all the relevant cabinet officials and vice presidents are saying something that Donald Trump has never said. He's never said that the Belt and Road was bad. He's never said that the Chinese are out to take over the world. Okay, so this is an incredible differential between what the president says and what his cabinet is saying. It's so glaring. It's so incredibly glaring. You can't avoid it. You can't mistake it. So something's going to have to come down. Now, in December, they arrested the CFO of Huawei, and then began this whole campaign on extraditing to the United States on very dubious charges. And this arrest and the attack on Huawei and saying the 5G, we have to stop China from getting 5G. Well, why? Why do you have to stop China from getting 5G? Because they might give it to Russia. Why is that an issue? Because the neocon element has been planning ever since, the Bush administration to win a preemptive nuclear war. And that's why they created something called prompt global strike, which is this whole idea. And then they withdrew from the ABM treaty. And now they're withdrawing from the INF treaty. And the idea is to win a nuclear war. But you can't win a nuclear war if you're not way, way ahead in computational power. So if Russia has 5G, and China has 5G, and the US has 5G, 5G meaning fifth generation. We're in fourth generation now, fifth generation. And I suspect that each generation is a quantum is an exponential increase in computational power. So now what? So now what? You can't win a nuclear war. That's no good. Because if you can't win a nuclear war to stop Russia and China, then China's going to eventually become even more economically powerful. And the U.S. can't even invest in its own development, as Donald Trump has always said. We spent $7 trillion in the Iraq war in the Middle East, and we can't even, dig a ditch in the United States. I mean, it's that bad. I mean, we can't build anything in the United States, not seriously. So this is the reality of the situation. So all these countries want economic development, and China's saying we're willing to help you develop. We have the engineering teams, we have the financing, we have we can train your people and so on and so forth. So this is very disturbing to the genetically superior white race oligarch that believes the Chinese are the Morlocks, and they're going to overrun us, and we're going to be Eloi, and we're going to be made into food for the Morlocks. That's the mentality that they have. That's not your mentality. That's not the mentality you have out there, but that's the mentality of the oligarchy. That's the mentality. Oh my God, the Chinese are taking over, and we're supposed to be the genetically superior people that are running the world, through our genetically superiority and our ability to keep everyone at everybody's throat, and through geopolitics and the drug trade. And you have three major imperial complexes that have been running things increasingly. One you know about, it's called the military-industrial complex. That's in the trillions. The second one is the dope incorporated complex, which includes the banks, the distribution networks. That's political power. That's financial power. That's the thing that Obama didn't want anyone to touch, because he was part of the whole British establishment. Then you have the third one that is huge. It's not as far with the other two. It's called the eco-industrial complex. Over the last 30 years, they created this huge funding structure for for climate change and ecological research, and they got everyone to start to grow food for turn it into gas in your car, and then the solar and the windmill and the shutting down of nuclear power, and in order to get all the solar and windmill, they had to do all the subsidies, and then there's the carbon. This is what I'm talking about on a global scale. This is a $2 trillion industry of grants, taxing the people, investing in worthless solar and windmill and other types of technologies which are have no energy return on investment, and it's a disaster. It's a waste of our resources. So we don't just have the military waste and the waste of human lives and human brains and the drug trade and the drug culture, but you also have the waste being created increasingly by this environmental eco-industrial complex, and it's huge, and it's going nuts right now. And I'll tell you why it's going nuts. Because the whole thing is based on fear. Okay, the military-industrial complex is based on fear of Russia and China, right? Fear of terrorism that is being financed, of course, by the military-industrial complex. Fear of all of that, and now we have the fear of the end of the world because of global warming. And don't you ever challenge that, because you're a skeptic, climate skeptic. You're a national. Obama said you're a national security threat if you even say that it's not gonna, the sea level isn't rising and we're gonna drown if we don't cut back our carbon emissions. If you say anything to question any of it, you are a national security problem. You are a national security problem, and maybe you should be arrested for endangering national security. That's what Obama was saying near the end of his term. Isn't that amazing? You're a national. If you don't subscribe to the consensus, whatever that is, on the so-called climate, the cause of climate, the causes they're saying, which none of their models, or there's no evidence to prove what they're saying. None of the models work. Doesn't matter. If you go against it, you're a national security problem. And not only that, the entire multi-billion-dollar environmental movement is now going into the schools, organizing demonstrations, telling the youth in high school, junior high school, grade school, walk out. You don't need an education. The world's going to come to an end in 12 years, and go to these demonstrations. And the lead spokesperson for this is the new congresswoman from Brooklyn, Alejandra Ocasio-Cortez, who's saying all of this, but it's not just her saying it. It's the entire apparatus of, Bill McKibben's 302 Club, the Rockefeller Foundation, George Soros, Steyer. It's all of it. It's all being funneled into this assault. And what's freaking them out? There was a Washington Post leak that Donald Trump is planning under the National Security Council to establish a climate panel to investigate the actual national security issues around climate change, and that this is to be an open, transparent, where adversarial positions are allowed to be presented and discussed. And this has not been officially announced, but this was a leak. And already 58 top military retired people and top defense people have come in saying, no, Trump, you cannot do that. The issue is settled. Climate change, global warming is real, and we have to cut carbon emissions by XXX before XXX, or else we're going to all die from the flooding of the oceans and the change in the weather. Now let me tell you something. The model they use is called the standard model. It's a standard climate model. It's an equilibrium model. It leaves out two very important variables in climate. The first is the role of the oceans. The oceans are, most of the area of the Earth's surface is governed by oceans. Okay. The relationship of solar radiation to the water in the oceans is the primary climate driver in the world. That relationship. Okay, that's not brought in. How do you measure that relationship? Okay, number one. Number two, the second thing that they don't understand is cloud formation. And the discovery that a big factor in cloud formation is cosmic radiation, which fluctuates depending upon the strength of the sun. That is not part of the standard model. So the standard model is an equilibrium, and the only thing that's changing in the standard model is, of course, the increase of carbon dioxide emissions which is being caused by humans. And on the basis of that, they say that this is the cause of global warming, but there's no proof that there's global warming. And anyone can take measurements it's very easy to say, well, we took this measurement here and this proves this, and somebody else says, well, we took that measurement here and it doesn't prove that. And so you need to have an open discussion on it. And the climate change people do not want to have any open discussion. They want to shut it down. And in fact, they're so freaked out, they're sending the children out. And of course, the children are great scientists. 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 8-year-olds, they are very brilliant people, and they understand all these things, of course. And they're being told they have no future, and that's child abuse. You tell a child there's no future, what are they going to do? They live for the future. If you're a child, it's your orientation is towards the future. And if you're being told there's no future, what does that do to you? It destroys your whole sense of self. This is criminal. This is what they're doing. And this is what the environmentalists have now fallen to. So this is a very key part of the whole battle that's going on. Now, this is really brilliant. I hope this panel is empowered, and I hope they have open hearings, and I hope they have testimony from all sides so people can see for themselves whether or not, and present the stuff. And I think you'll have freakouts like you wouldn't believe. You'll have screaming matches. Oh, Trump is this and that. Why? Because he's letting everybody speak on this thing, and letting different points of view, different scientific points of view to come out. And so this is huge, and this could have an incredible impact on the political situation. Now, but Trump's not alone. There's another world leader who's told the Paris Climate Accord and all these people, you guys are nothing but eco-imperialists. His name is Narendra Modi. He's the president of India. I mean, he's the prime minister of India. Excuse me, and he's refusing to go along with it. And then you have another person who's also saying that they're not going along, and that's Russia. That's the government of Russia. And then China is pretending to go along in part, but they made an agreement. They signed the Paris Accord on one condition, that it doesn't apply to them for another 30 years or something. So, meanwhile, they can build nuclear power plants and erase their footprint by building nuclear power plants. So that's what you're doing. So the world is not going along with this thing, and so therefore the neocons are being unleashed. They are now the primary threat to the existence of Donald Trump. Is the neocons in his government? They're the ones going for a coup, and a lot of it is and there is a strong neocon streak in Fox News. So that's another issue. Now, let's get to the political situation inside the United States. It is gone crazy. The Democratic Party has abandoned the working class openly. And they have made the final embrace with something called identity politics. Now, back in the 1980s, you saw the takeover of the Democratic Party by the beginning of identity politics by the anti-war crowd, who were pushing also the idea of, identity politics. It started with women having, equal whatever. Nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But that became the basis of a political identity was women. Then came minorities also. That became the basis. Then came Hispanics. and then came gays, and then came LBTGs, and then now comes the millennials, and it's all identity politics. You have leadership within these identity politics groupings, and then they organize themselves around putting women into office, or putting Hispanics into office, or putting African Americans into office. That's fine. That part's okay. But you can't unite a nation around that. You have to unite the nation around a common destiny, a common purpose, a common economic future. You don't create identity politics. Identity politics will not unite your nation. It will create divisions, artificial divisions, and so forth. But so what's happened is that the working class has been squeezed out, because that's the that's the center of the economic issue. And so in discussions that I've had with the leadership of the Democratic Party in the state of Washington, behind the scenes leadership, this is what's happened. And the centrist political figures inside the Democratic Party who would pull everybody together are not running. Not even people like Hillary Clinton would run. So you have a situation where the only way to go is to go for the juggler. That is, to use the 7 committees with subpoena power to go after Trump. So what is Trump going to do when his children are indicted? He's going to fight back. And that's where we're going. That's where this whole thing is going. It's going in that direction. And the population is going to become more polarized. And that's the world we're going into.